fantastic. Lawrence sends his best. He is actually on holiday for the first time visiting his daughters since the pandemic started. So he sends his love to all of you. But let's dive in. We have a beautiful 90 minutes ahead in store for all of us. Really excited and honored to have Nalima Bhatt join us. We're going to be doing what to expect for today for the next 90 minutes, being each other's presence and sharing some time together. We're also going to be, morning Sharon Joy, we're going to be breaking out in breakout rooms as well for us to share. It'll be groups of 3. You'll go in with a prompt, a topic, a question. Nalima will go over that, what you're going to go into, and just a reminder to the be groups of 3, so allow time enough for everyone to share. But we are really excited. Feel free if you have any questions, chats, comments, or anything, please feel free to utilize the chat box as well. And let's dive in. I am very, very excited to turn it over to our recently appointed Mr. Mark Sloss. He is our recently appointed Executive Director of Future Capital. Mark, I'm going to pass it right over to you. Yeah, we are actually recording. We're recording now. So we record. Thank you.
I thought you were telling people I was recently appointed Mark Sloss.
You are recently appointed Mark Sloss, and we're honored that you appointed yourself Mark Sloss. So thank you for being Mark Sloss.
I'll let my parents know. Thanks everybody for joining this morning. I'm really looking forward to this program as well. I wanted to start, everybody, and thank the leadership team for the Future Capital Initiative for putting this program and all the other programs together. In particular, Steve Sheath, Patty Clower, and Heather Desjardins for all the work they did in partnership with Nalima to make today possible. And later in the program, Patty is also going to talk about a couple of the upcoming programs we have in the months that follow as well. Just a reminder, or new for those of you who are joining us for the first time, what Future Capital is about. This is an initiative that was co-created by Lawrence Ford and a number of other amazing people under the shade of the United Nations to really address the disconnect between consciousness and capitalism. Both have existed for a long time, consciousness clearly for a lot longer, but we're probably past the tipping point in the world where those two things need to come together. And so that is essentially what we're all about. 3 basic kinds of activities that we are focused on. The first is convening, which is one of the things that we are doing here right now, bringing people together from around the world, from a variety of disciplines and backgrounds to help work on this purpose and this mission. This collaboration, now that can happen within the Future Capital tent, or it can start here and then move out into the world. We just kind of want to be the match that lights the fuse on that. And then incubate new ideas, new initiatives, new projects, new papers, even new businesses that potentially start, which address this bigger question of how we really create and regenerate the connective tissue between consciousness and capitalism. So that's just a little bit about us. I'd ask you all, if you aren't already doing so, to follow us on social media, to watch what's going on the website, communicate with us via email, phone, whatever works for you. Future Capital is all of us. So thank you for being here. Now I want to hand it off to Patty Clower to get us started with today's program.
Patty, you're on mute.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Welcome. It's so great to see all your faces. So I just want to introduce Nalima. I'm so thrilled that she's doing this workshop with us. Nalima was one of the founding members of Future Capital, and also she was on the design team that helped us kind of bring it together for the first time. So we're really thrilled that she's sharing her knowledge and her wisdom. So Nalima Bhatt, as a workshop leader, is a corporate refugee turned yogini who serves as a global facilitator of personal transformation. Her extensive and pioneering body of work is encompassed in her 2 books, Shakti Leadership Embracing Feminine and Masculine Power in Business, and My Cancer is Me, The Journey from Illness to Wholeness. Together, they outline new and cutting-edge holistic and integrated approaches to diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging, leadership, and resilience. Nilima is currently building the Shakti Fellowship, jointly certified with the University of San Diego and WIN, the Women Information Network, with a mission to create 100,000 women changemakers by 2030. The Truth and Reconciliation movement as well for healing collective trauma and leading harmonious interdependence at a planetary level. Nilima was a member of the Future Capital Design Team and one of the first founding 50 members. So we are so grateful for her many contributions to our community and her willingness to share her discoveries as she has journeyed towards wholeness. So without further ado, welcome, dear Nilima.
Thank you, Patty. Thank you so much. It's just a delight to see all these lovely faces and so many familiar faces. I'm seeing you after September 11, 2019, and the world has changed since. I see some other familiar faces who have worked with, who podcasts with. Shout out to Dove and some wonderful people here. So let's just dive right in. I've got a slide deck, and you can feel free to watch it in such a way that you see me, but you also see the slides, so you can adjust your screen. So let's dive right in. So welcome to this workshop today, Shakti Leadership as a Bridge to Future Capital. And as we know, the fierce urgency of now, this is literally a quick snapshot to set the context in which we are going to learn about Shakti leadership and how to work with it in the next 90 minutes or so. We have a world in a crisis. We have a crisis of consciousness and a crisis of leadership. I mean, everything that you look at, all the crises on all fronts, politics, social, economic, environmental. It's the famous Einstein thing that a problem cannot be solved at the level at which it was created. So it's a level of consciousness that has created the crises we are in. And therefore, we need to move to a next level of consciousness to solve the problems we have. Equally, it's a crisis of leadership because everything that is happening in our world today is because somewhere some leader made a decision which has now led to the problem we are facing. So clearly our leadership has failed us as well. So this is what we are looking at right now. And the current hyper-masculine leadership model and business model and governance model is inadequate. Most of our leadership model comes from our militaristic history because that's where most leadership was applied. But we have way past gone that time, and we need a whole new kind of model now. So feminization is needed to restore balance. Also, there is a strong business case and research that validates the fact that women are critical to the economy, ecology, technology, and the peace process. It is time to end the battle of the sexes and become fully human. We urgently need leaders who are two things. A, they are conscious, meaning they show self-mastery and selfless service of a higher purpose. And two, that they are integrated, meaning they express healthy, competitive, masculine, and collaborative feminine values and behaviors, both. It is time for a new leadership model on a new power base that creates a world that works for all life. It's time to know Shakti, the innate power of existence, Shakti is one of the civilizational elixirs that comes out of India. And it's such a beautiful time actually to look around at all the civilizations and all the cultures of the world and really pick and choose those wonderful elixirs that have come out of their hundreds and thousands of years of being on this planet and learning and growing, and their combined heroic journey and the elixirs they bring. And if those elixirs can be curated and put together, we may just find solutions to these problems. So one of these civilizational elixirs from India is the concept of Shakti, right? So what is Shakti? Shakti is, like understanding that there is an innate intelligence to existence, and this intelligence of existence also has a lot of power built into it. Think about these tremendous galaxies and supernovas, and our brain having thoughts, and I mean we are steeped in something that is deeply energetic and powerful, and which is infinite, it is creative, it's inviolable, and it's inclusive, because everything happens in it. And it's not, you can't destroy it, it's indestructible, right? So this thing that is the innate power of existence, that is infinite, creative, inviolable, and inclusive, is called by the Indic seers and yogis, it's called Shakti. And we relate to it as the mother, because it is the source from which all force emanates. And it's like the creative principle as well. So therefore, it's related as if it is the mother. And it is the power that fuels evolution. And most importantly for us in leadership, it is the power that drives all change, that transforms the necessary things. So just have a good look at this, because we're going to go deeper into the idea of Shakti and innate power that's available to all of us. And the thing to know about Shakti is that it has to be accessed through presence. And we will talk about how, the typical power game that's out there in the world is such a zero-sum game and a win-lose game, whereas we're like fish dying of thirst when we are steeped in, we live in power, which is innate to existence. But for us to access it, we have to cultivate presence. So we talk about a conscious leader being present. I love showing this duck because it's a lovely picture of how smooth it looks coming across the water. But if you look at it underneath, you notice it's kind of paddling furiously to stay afloat. And I love this metaphor because this is what a conscious leader who is present has to do in order to look smooth and graceful coming across the water. It's not just something that happens by accident. It's not that you're just born present. It takes work, much like this duck paddling. It takes work. And a conscious leader does this wonderful thing to their team, their organization, or whatever it is that they are leading. They act like this wonderful protective layer that keeps the storm out and allows the space that they hold to remain in equilibrium, so that in that things can grow. I'm just showing you visuals because presence is something that is hard to describe and define. It's perhaps better understood through visuals and the sense they communicate. As Donna Karan would say, it's all about finding the calm in the chaos. The way we like to define it, and this comes from the work of the Enneagram, is that presence is a state in which you have nothing to defend, promote, or fear, and are completely available to the moment. We will go deeper into this at the end of the session when I will take you through a presence practice, and you will be able to note the change of state from our ordinary state to a state of presence. And here's the thing about presence, right? That it's the master key, and anything so important, anything worth having has to be cultivated with dedicated practice. So it takes work, it takes practice, much like this beautiful dancer who seems to be in a state of presence herself. And having talked about presence and how presence is the doorway through which we can access Shakti, I also wanted to talk about the fact that even while Shakti is this innate power of existence and in which we all exist, it's also sadly because of, having had, thousands of years of patriarchy on the planet, Shakti has become the invisible feminine. Yeah, and there was this cartoon from the New Yorker that Raj came across, my co-author Raj Sisodia, came across when we were writing this book. And he was joking about it. He said, Nilima, there is this elephant on a couch, on a psychiatrist's couch, and it's so depressed. And it's saying, I'm right there in the room, and no one even acknowledges me. And the minute he said that, something clicked. And I said, Raj, don't you see? That elephant is Shakti, right? That elephant is so powerful. It's the most powerful creature in the jungle. So it's like, it's a perfect metaphor for Shakti. And so if you think about what the feminine brings to our world and what the feminine holds for our world, is so powerful. And yet it has been devalued, it has been repressed, it's been invisible, it's simply not seen. And so this elephant well expresses what Shakti must feel like, that I'm right there in the room and no one even acknowledges me. There's a lovely story about how elephants are trained in India. They're trained to move the lumber, when they cut down the trees. And so when a baby elephant is born, it is tied to a tree, a big tree, and it has a chain around that tree, and it tries to move away and run away, but it cannot. Once it grows up, it's already been socialized, it's been conditioned inside its head that I can't run away and I'm not strong enough, I'm not bigger than this tree. So now the mahout, the elephant trainer, simply has to de-link the chain from the tree and keep the chain around the elephant's foot. And as long as the elephant feels the chain around its foot, it's thinking, I'm a domesticated creature and I have to follow these orders and I don't have any agency or power of my own. I just follow instructions, right? So it's a very poignant metaphor, even though it's a bit tongue-in-cheek here. So moving into the idea of Shakti further, what does Shakti mean in leadership? So very simply, in leadership, Shakti is the power that you exercise when you are present as a leader. So it's the power of your presence. And the way to understand it is that while presence brings a sense of equanimity, you kind of exude a sense of balance and centeredness, and you look very calm, but it's not a dead, dull, inert kind of still place. Its accompanying power is profoundly creative. So the power provides a creative energy to innovate conscious outcomes needed in that moment as a leader, right? So it's a very, very necessary complement to presence, and it comes when you are present. And it gives you the necessary agency you are going to need if you're going to bring about any change as a leader. So I want to have a quick check-in here. And feel free to make your notes or feel free to put in your insights in the chat box. But I want you to think about what is your power base, right? How do you exercise power typically? And you can see there are two kinds of powers, just for the sake of discussion here. There is the one column which is true power, and there's the other column which is false power. So true power is when you're doing win-win kind of transactions and conversations where you are both sharing power, it's a power with, versus false power where you are consciously or unconsciously doing some sort of a win-lose power over game there. Okay, so false power is the force of your narrow self-interest, what's good for me regardless of everybody else, whereas true power is the force for greater good. I'm sorry for the typo there, it's the force for greater good. And so false power is typically coming from privilege. You know, the only way we can get that kind of power is by getting some sort of external validation and external source. So you want to become CEO, or you want to, you know, join politics or whatever it is, because if you know, the conversation around all tables across all countries is who's in power and who lost power, right? So it's about gaining that privilege that comes from some sort of external source, which gives you more money, more fame, you know, sometimes even more good looks, right? Anything that privileges you, you look for that because privilege carries power. The thing is, most things that come with privilege are finite, meaning that they can be taken away from you. And we see this all the time, right? One day a politician is power and in power, and the next day they lose power. Same with the big title you have with your job, and when you are made redundant, you don't have that anymore. So it can be taken away from you. And certainly coming from India, I see this a lot, you know, the conversation around power. Maybe this is why I wrote this book, because I was thinking, why is everyone fighting over scraps of power when there is the real deal available? Anything you create from privilege-based power is also a bit of waste of time, because it is what your mini-me has created, your ego self has created, and it's kind of inherently separated from where evolution itself wants to go. So it's like having beaten water in a cup. You feel you've done a lot of hard work and you've got super busy, but when you take your hand out of that cup, the water goes right back to being still. All that energy gone for nothing. So what you create with your privilege-based false power ultimately fails. And we spend years and years of our life trying to do this kind of power. So it's good to step back and think about it. So let's look on the left-hand column. So there is true power, which is the power of Shakti, which is an internal source. It's an innate source. It's unlimited. And best of all, it cannot be taken away from you. And, you know, this reminds me of Viktor Frankl's, you know, book where he talks about man's search for meaning, that everything, you can't control what happens to you, but you can always choose the response you're going to give it, right? So that is a power you have, and no one can take that agency away from you. And more beautifully, whatever you create, when you put yourself in alignment with the power of evolution itself, will last, because it's what evolution itself wants to create, and you are simply then an instrument, a channel through which it is being brought into manifestation. So it's nice to think about this. Where are you typically located, which quadrant? And all of us will move between one quadrant or the other, and that's totally fine. It's just about now noticing and catching yourself and changing when the time comes. Some questions to think about, right? Are you doing power over or power with? So think of a key relationship in your life. How do you exercise power in this relationship? Is it mostly power over or power with? And this could be a significant other. It could be your supervisor. Think about how you're doing power there. Think of a person who models power over leadership and someone who models power with leadership. And what can you learn about your own relationship with power? And this was, you know, when I would ask this, when, you know, you had your last president in the United States, many people would think of him as someone who does power over leadership. And power with would be someone like a Jacinda Ardern of New Zealand. So it's one thing to look at others and call them, you know, power over, power with kind of leaders. But more importantly, can we turn the mirror towards ourselves and think about, how do I do power? What is my relationship with power? Next, how can you watch for power over dynamics and shift to power with dynamics from now on? And again, we talked about the master key being presence. Everything begins from presence, and then you learn how to shift, but it's a muscle you have to train and develop. Notice how and when you may be giving away your power or unconsciously tend to lose it. Why do you think this happens, and how can you prevent it? So it's not always only about being the perpetrator. Sometimes the victim power game is also a way to gain power by acting helpless and letting someone else do the work for you, right? That is a subtle and unconscious and unhealthy way of getting power, which ultimately keeps you in victimhood. So it's something to watch for and step out of. Moving on. To come into your full power, you need to become a whole person. And you will see this slide, which I've been using as the backdrop, is the archetype of what's called the Ardhanarishwar. It comes from the Indian yogic tradition, that we are innately half male and half female. The right side is our masculine side. It's called our Shiva. And our left side is our feminine side, and it's called our Shakti. Shiva is our consciousness, our awareness, our stillness, and Shakti is the creative energy that then acts from that place of consciousness. And we are equal parts, both, regardless of gender. So to come into our full power, we need to become whole, right? We can't work with half ourselves. And here is the secret, right? That everything comes in pairs. There is a dual nature of things. And in the Chinese Taoist tradition, they call it, of course, the yin and yang. And even though feminine and masculine in the English language kind of translates yin and yang, it's not perfect. And it can end up rubbing many people the wrong way, because the word feminine and the word masculine has got a bad rep and people get triggered by it. So I would just say, please just bear with me here, because if we start getting upset with language and we start letting go words because they trigger us, then ultimately we'll not be left with any language. So it's better to inquire into why does a word trigger us than just give up on a word. So staying with feminine and masculine, yin and yang, you see the side which is on the black, it's all about the receptive self, that feminine self, and everything on the white side is the active self, the masculine self, and how they work together, and they exist in everything together. So it's just that one operates more than the other to create a kind of difference in the system. So there is Shakti, there is Shiva, the anima, animus, right brain, left brain. And for leadership, really this thing boils down to task and relationship. So in leadership, the masculine aspect would be about making sure the results are achieved. And the feminine would be about making sure you take everyone along and the relationships are maintained, right? You want both. Feelings and thoughts, intuition, intellect, estrogen, testosterone, relaxation, concentration, divergence, convergence. And an interesting one here, you know, there is will and then there's grace, right? And they happen together as well. And so when we talk about wholeness in Shakti leadership and we work with this archetype, we work a lot with mythology in Shakti leadership, because as Joseph Campbell would say, and we use the hero's journey a lot in Shakti leadership. So Campbell would say mythology is psychology. So we look at archetypes, we look at these beings, these deities, as forces that are within our own psyche and soma, that move us from inside. So wholeness would be about reclaiming our lost half to become a whole person. The other book that I've written is called My Cancer is Me, with my husband Vijay, after his journey through colon cancer and surviving and thriving from it. And this thing about reclaiming our lost half, the search for the lost half, in order to become a whole person, in order to heal, is something that was very strongly present in much of the Jungian material that we were coming across. So it exists, of course, in the Taoist and in the yogic tradition as well, as you can see. So we say a conscious leader is whole, mean equal parts, these two. And let me give a quick shout out to my wonderful mentor, Father Lancy Pereira, a Jesuit priest, musicologist, scientist who just passed away. And he would say to me, Nilima, as we grow older, we become the other, don't we? We integrate the other. As men grow older, they grow breasts. And as women grow older, they grow beards. And that's just like a biological level integration happening there. But obviously, it's also then happening at a psychological level. We also say that a conscious leader is flexible, and the bamboo is highly revered in the Chinese culture for that reason, to bend and not break. Similarly, the chameleon that has learned how to adapt. So flexibility or adaptability or agility is a very major leadership competence that's needed out there. And at a minimum, it's about learning how to flex between your masculine and your feminine style or energy. So we say flexibility is the capacity to switch modes seamlessly and to bend without breaking as the situation requires. So the question then I ask, saying, what's the purpose of polarity? Why does everything come in pairs, right? Think about it. When you have a horseshoe magnet, right now, nothing seems to be happening in the space between the poles. But when you put a wire through it, what gets generated? Electricity, current. If it weren't for the polarity and the magnetic field created by the polarity, we wouldn't be able to put a wire through it and unlock the innate potential energy and turn it for use that fuels the system, right? So polarity is like nature's inherent design to unlock potential energy constantly so that fuel and power is generated to supply all the processes of the system, from natural systems all the way to, mechanical, all the systems that we live in, right? Animate and inanimate. So polarity has been built in by nature. It's part of nature's design. So everything comes in pairs. Therefore, the question to ask ourselves is, why do we then choose to be one way versus the other, right? Why do we choose to be masculine and not feminine? Or why do we choose to be feminine and not masculine? It's a false decision to make, right? So we need to leverage both. And I'm going to share perhaps the master slide of this entire talk. This is looking at how do we leverage both masculine and feminine power traits. And we're going to put together a polarity map on the screen. Polarity mapping is the work from Barry Johnson and Polarity Partnerships. And we've adapted it from there. Seeing that, how do we work with a polarity map? We first discover what is it that we don't want, right? We don't want to block our Shakti. What is it that we want? We want to release our Shakti. We want to come into our full power. And in order to do that, we have to be able to leverage both our feminine and our masculine side, right? So what is the upside of the healthy feminine, right? Empathy and gentleness, inclusion, nurturing, openness, creativity, variety, and flavor of life that brings the juice, right? Trust, vulnerability, harmony. These are beautiful feminine qualities needed in leadership, which I've just crowdsourced from groups such as yours when I said to them, what would be some healthy feminine qualities in leadership? Now, we are currently talking about the future is feminine and if there is to be a future, it'll wear a crown of feminine design and so on. But let us remember, it's only because the masculine has gone into overdrive because the feminine has been neglected, right? So we are currently looking at a hyper-masculine context simply because of having devalued and repressed all things feminine and female. And as a result, we've fallen below the line into what's the unhealthy masculine quadrant, the hyper-masculine quadrant. So that's aggressive, cruel, mechanical, arrogant, insensitive, violent, power-hungry, spiritually empty. These are some of the qualities that participants called out to us. So I just captured them here. But equally important, let's remember, all things feminine are not good, just like all things masculine are not bad. The feminine too, when it is over-leveraged and done to the neglect of the masculine, goes into its own unhealthy state. That could look like smothering, sentimental, needy, dependent, exploited, unfocused, irrational, weak, and manipulative. So let's not forget that many of us are here and find ourselves located here more often than not, especially if we are female, okay, but even as men, because we have both archetypes in ourselves. And let's not forget that the reason we have adored the masculine and let the masculine lead is because there are these beautiful qualities that the masculine does bring when it is healthy. Clarity, assertiveness, focus, direction, order, discipline, structure, discernment, strength, and convergence, getting things done, not endlessly talking about it, right? Now, here's the thing. The way to remain healthy is to be in a place of presence and learn how to inhale and exhale between the top two quadrants, right? So polarities are like an inhale and an exhale. We are meant to leverage both. We cannot live on one and deny the other. If we do that, we fall below the line, and then we end up experiencing a dance of death, this kind of worst of both worlds. We fall below the line and have the worst of both worlds. So we have no choice but to remain above the line and to leverage our healthy masculine and our healthy feminine energy, power, style from moment to moment in every leadership situation. So take a pause here and just absorb this, because as they say in polarity mapping, that once you see a polarity map, you can't unsee it. Right? And we have to ask ourselves, where are we typically located? How much time do we spend in each of these quadrants? If you were to break it up over 100%, right? But an easier way to work with this is really the master stroke from Barry Johnson, where he says, think about an early warning sign, because if what you want to do is remain above the line, then you have to catch yourself when you start falling below the line. So ask yourself, when I start falling below the line into hyper-feminine, what is a quality I typically start exhibiting? What is an early warning sign for you? And the example I always give is my early warning sign when I'm falling below the line and becoming hyper-feminine, I become needy, right? I start expecting some man around me to start taking care of things, and I start feeling needy. And now I have learned that when I start feeling needy, I've got to insert pause, and I've got to go diagonally across the screen into the top right-hand corner of the healthy masculine. So I have to take an action step. So the early warning is neediness. So the action step, what can I take or draw from that is in my skill set, that is a superpower I do have, that is healthy masculine. And I discovered the superpower I do have that is healthy masculine. It's not here, but I call it self-care. It's a wonderful masculine quality. And so it's a perfect antidote to neediness. I make sure I take care of my needs myself. I do the self-care. So identify what is an action step you can take when you become unhealthy feminine. How can you move to healthy masculine? Next thing is identify when you fall below the line into unhealthy masculine. If you've been sitting around being masculine all the time and you're task-oriented and you've forgotten to take your relationships along with you, typically you'll find something's going to give. and you're going to fall below the line and exhibit unhealthy masculine behaviors. So what is your early warning sign that you're becoming unhealthy masculine? In my case, I become judgmental. I start writing people off and I start feeling superior to others. So now I know when that voice in the head starts going, I'm being judgmental. I know I have to pause and I have to move across to the top left-hand corner to the healthy feminine and take an action step, exercise one of my healthy feminine capacities, right? What is that? In my case, it's compassion or other care, right? So the minute I start judging, I catch myself and I move across and I have to do the work of applying compassion or other care, taking care of someone else and putting someone else's needs above mine from a place of presence, right? So very beautifully, if you look above the line, as long as you're inhaling between your healthy masculine and your healthy feminine, in my case, as long as I'm moving between self-care and compassion for others, I remain in a state of balance and flow. And it looks like I'm breathing the full and free breath of life, and I am in my presence and I'm in my power. And when I forget to do that, sure enough, I catch myself and I'll notice that I'm becoming judgmental or I'm becoming needy. So please take a moment to identify your early warnings and your action steps. This could be, take a screenshot. This could be one of the most powerful things you take away from today. And I often joke that this could save many relationships and your marriage as well. So moving on. Since we work with mythology as psychology, from the Indic tradition, we realize that these two forces of the Shiva and the Shakti, right, the masculine and the feminine that's within us, whether it's Eros and Thanatos or Logos and Mythos, what's within us, these are complementary forces. And on one hand, they're deeply attracted to each other, right? And on the other hand, so this is Shiva and Shakti being the ultimate bridal couple. They are the ultimate loving relationship. We all want our relationship to be like this when you hear the story of Shiva and Shakti, okay? But at the same time, there's another story in Indian mythology, which is the war of the sexes. There is the story of Durga, who is the divine feminine, the sovereign divine feminine, and she comes into being to kill the demon of lust. Okay, that masculine force that seeks to rape and consume the feminine. And that brings out the Durga Shakti, the sovereign feminine, in order to battle the toxic masculine. So we have constantly these two kinds of stories in all cultures where the masculine and the feminine within us are deeply attracted to each other, or they are at profound war with each other. And what they are mirroring to us are nothing but these forces that are as yet unharmonized and undigested in us. So we go from love and war of the sexes, but a day comes through presence and through integration and through maturation, we reconcile the two within ourselves. And it's also about maturing sexually. And you arrive into a very different life stage once you achieve this psychological integration. It's called the inner wedding, the dance of love and power, where your heartful man marries your mindful woman. And if you're a man, the hero, you know, if you identify with the masculine, you learn to say yes, because otherwise you're trained to say no. You learn to open up boundaries, and you open up to vulnerability, and you find love, right? And if you are, interestingly, when you find love, you essentially find your own nature, because if the feminine is power, the masculine, Shiva, is love. You know, that stillness, that magnetic stillness that knows how to attract everything to itself. You know, there is a powerful love in that. If you're the heroine, when you achieve the inner wedding, if you identify with the feminine, then you learn to say no, because you're too busy saying yes otherwise and giving your power away and getting used by everybody. So you learn to say no. You create those healthy boundaries to gain security and to reclaim the power that you innately are. Okay? And what this brings us to is once that inner wedding takes place, it's time to have a family. So the psychological wholeness is truly whole when we become the holy family within. The holy family reunion, if you combine transaction analysis of Eric Berne, which is about integrating your parent self and your child self, and then the anima animus individuation model of Jung, you integrate your inner woman and your inner man, you become psychologically whole and you achieve the holy family reunion. And in Shakti leadership, we call it becoming the wise fool of tough love. So this is like the elixir of the Shakti leadership model. Who do you wish to be as a leader, as a whole leader? You wish to be wise, access to your parent self. You wish to be foolish, knowing how to not take yourself too seriously, knowing how to lighten up, knowing how to play, knowing how to be curious, knowing how to wonder, be, that child self. And then tough love, right? Tough is having that inner masculine energy, and love is knowing how to include and, gather as you go. What is the model, the complete model of Shakti leadership? It's a journey. It's journey through the 5 elements. The first is to cultivate presence. From presence, you're able to access Shakti, which is your true power. Then you cultivate psychological wholeness. And then you learn to flex between your wise fool of tough love, or at a minimum, your healthy feminine and your healthy masculine. And we talk about congruence as well, which is knowing your purpose and then living on purpose, right? Living a life that the leader you are is the person you are. So feeling congruent right through. And we put a circle around this model and the yantra, the symbol, because this is the heroic journey. Because to come into each of these 5 elements, each of them is a power base. Power is never given to you on a platter, so you're going to have to earn it. You're going to have to die in some way. You go on a heroic journey. And when you come back, the elixir you bring back is presence and Shakti and wholeness and flexibility and congruence. You're probably going to have to journey for each one, each time, a separate journey, and maybe more than once for each of these elements. But it's a lifetime's work. So let's practice presence. Are we ready? Since I've talked so much about presence, let's do a very quick dive into feeling present. So let's try and integrate all the stuff that we have learned. I want you to straighten yourselves. Half close your eyes or fully close them, but make sure you're paying attention to my voice and following the instructions. So squeeze and release all the body parts one by one. Squeeze the face, the shoulders, the arms, the ribs, the torso, the hips, the thighs, knees, calves, ankles, feet and toes. Squeeze everything tight and release. Now close your eyes, and as the body relaxes, bring your awareness to your breath. Notice how the rhythmic breath is moving in and out of your relaxed body. Enjoy paying attention to your inhalation and to your exhalation. As you continue to breathe rhythmically, settle into a peaceful mind. So imagine that your mind has turned into a liquid lake high on a mountain top. It's a crystal clear, sunny day. And visualize that the lake of your mind has no turbidity, no moss on the surface, no ripples. It's just clean and clear and calm. Using your imagination to calm the mind, visualize that you're looking down into this lake and the surface is like a mirror. And your beautiful self is shining back at you. Your essence is shining back at you. You wish to merge with this essential self, this presence that you see. So imagine that you're stepping into the lake of your mind and the waters are cool and calm and wonderful and perfect. And as the waters rise up, they lap against your heart. Feel your heart and allow your heart to now moisten open. This beautiful organ can also reveal and receive feelings and emotions that are pure and true. Allow your heart to be vulnerable and to open. When your heart feels moistened open, I invite you to move through this gate of the heart. It's the gateless gate of the heart. And now come and stand in your spine. Visualize that your spine is connecting heaven above and earth below. And there is this powerful Shakti, this river of life that's flowing through your spinal column. And tributaries of energy and light are going in all directions and irrigating all your body parts, vivifying you, regenerating you, refreshing you. This is your Shakti filling you up from within. I want you to affirm with me as you feel so present in your spine. You can step back from your gut and say the reality of this moment, repeat with me, is that I have nothing to defend. And let your gut relax. Feeling your heart, repeat after me. The reality of this moment is that I have nothing to promote. Moving into your head now, let the brain relax and repeat with me. The reality of this moment is that I have nothing to fear. The only reality of this moment is that I am here now. All I need is within me. All I need comes to me. And all I need flows through me. I am enough. I have enough. And there is enough for all we can share. Feeling this wonderful state of presence, gently rub your hands, sweep them over your face, wipe yourself down, towel yourself awake, refreshed. Feel yourself stepping out of this wonderful river in which you have had the perfect bath. And welcome back. I'd love for you to type into the chat box any shift in state that you may have experienced. How are you feeling right now versus before we started the presence practice? And quite possible, some of you may have also felt a bit like this. Right? Come on, inner peace. I don't have all day. That's totally fine. I invite you to practice presence. We will be sharing the link to this recording, but just the presence practice as well. And you do it a few times and you build that muscle of presence and it becomes so much easier. What did we do there? There was a relaxed body that took us to even breath, clear mind, open heart. Then we moved into a sensitive sonar and energetic induction. This is a higher order of presence, which you will notice in the recording that I send with you. You want to bring your presence to your 5 senses. You also want to be able to induct other people into a state of presence. So a leader who's truly present does that very, very easily. You will notice if you're in the presence of an enlightened master, you feel calm just because that is their aura, right? So that is their energy field. And this was that wonderful power statement. The reality of this moment is that I have nothing to defend, nothing to promote, nothing to fear. I am here now. All I need is within me. All I need comes to me. I am enough, I have enough, and there is enough for all. Each of these statements has been very, very carefully chosen to unhook us from our usual triggers. So when we lose presence, we go to our gut and we become defensive. Or when we lose presence, we go to our heart and we start wanting to be validated and we start self-promoting. Or we go to our head and we become fearful. Or we have these feelings around not being enough, not having enough, and that there isn't enough to go around. These are all scarcity consciousness, victim consciousness, belief patterns that we learn to unhook from when we use an affirmation statement like this. So I want us to work with the masculine and feminine leadership styles assessment. And I'm looking at the time, and I want to quickly explain it to you before you go into your breakouts. Do all of you have the leadership styles assessment? And can you see this? Can you see the screen share of the leadership styles assessment? I need someone to unmute and tell me.
No, Nalima, we
Nalima,
just see the presentation.
Okay, so let me stop and share again. Now do you see it?
For
Yes.
those of you that are saying you haven't received it, I just put in chat a link to the Google Drive, where if you click on that link, you can access this assessment.
So what I'm going to do, because we don't have time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain how you work with this and let this be a fun homework for you to do afterwards, okay? This is a way for you to identify, are you dominant masculine, which is the alpha, or are you dominant feminine, which here is the omega? And there is no right or wrong answer. We are broadly one or the other as a leadership archetype when it comes to masculine and feminine. And typically, it's how we structure our team or work, or how we are oriented, what do we focus on to get the job done, or how we influence, how we get others to do what is important for us, or what motivates us from within, what energizes or drives you when working with others, and how you handle conflict, how you resolve disagreements and disputes. So typically, as individuals, we will tend to apply a masculine or a feminine style in how we approach structure, orientation, influence, motivation, and conflict, right? And what I want you to do after this session is to go simply and fill in the box, okay? So you notice there's a line in the middle, and I want you to tick the appropriate box on the side of the alpha, as well as the side on the omega. So 0 is never, 1 is rarely, 2 is sometimes, and 3 is often. So let me just explain one here, like conflict. How do you resolve disagreements and conflict? Do you tend to confront directly? You could say never, rarely, sometimes, or often. But I also want you to fill the other side, how you resolve disagreements and disputes. You approach indirectly, right? Again, I want you to fill in. Is it never, rarely, sometimes, or often and always, okay? Once you fill the entire worksheet, I want you to total the score on the A side and write that down here. And then you total the score on the B side, on the other side, the omega side, and write it here. And depending on which is higher, you are leading more from that style or energy. It's really as simple as that. And so Alpha and omega, masculine and feminine, are complementary styles bearing complementary forces. I simply called it alpha and omega. Okay, that's my terminology because sometimes people get upset with using masculine and feminine. Just think of them as complementary leadership styles bearing complementary forces. And therefore, think of a dilemma you are facing. Which of the above 5 domains is it about? Is it in, so right here, you start diagnosing the problem you're having and start discovering a solution for it. So once you know which of these 5 domains is it about, then you've got to ask, what style or energy do I need to dial up or dial down to resolve the situation? So this one worksheet is literally like a power bullet, okay? I mean, you can diagnose so many things at work and in your teams and in your culture, in your leadership. And right there, you'll be able to discover what is it that you need to dial up or dial down. It's literally like saying hot and cold running water, it's about finding that balance. It's about finding that sweet spot between these two complementary forces. And you will discover it right there. And if you are dominant masculine, learn to build your feminine muscle. If you're dominant feminine, learn to build your masculine muscle because you need to have both. Okay. So with that, I'm going to ask Heather to take us into breakouts because we've thrown a lot at you. I've thrown a lot at you, and I'd love for you to now to go into breakouts. You're going to have 10 minutes to think of a dilemma you're currently facing and which of these energies, masculine or feminine, do you need to dial up or dial down? Okay, so go ahead. You have 3 minutes each to speak and 1 bonus minute. You'll be in groups of 3 and you'll be back in 10 minutes. All right. So Heather, go ahead. So welcome everyone. I think they've all popped back in, right? Okay, great. Wonderful. So nice to see everybody back. And I hope you had a meaningful, though short, conversation. And I'd love to hear a few call outs. And the floor is open for the next 5 minutes for some Q&A as well. So, floor is open. Who would like to share? Maybe I should go into gallery view. Heather, if you see anyone put their hand up.
Absolutely. If you came in upon entry, if you had your camera on when we started, I pushed a button and had you not share your camera. And I'm going ahead and asking you all to start sharing if you feel comfortable right now. So just bear with me. And
okay, Kat has a Kat. Wonderful.
Hi, Kat. You have to unmute yourself. That's perfect.
Yeah, I actually was waving to my friend Manju, but I'd be happy to say I've just jumped in here the last few minutes. I made a mistake on the time of the call, but just being in my little breakout group for a few minutes, I really deeply appreciated what motivates me to operate more from the masculine, which is I was sharing with everyone was fear, tends to be fear. And that's an insight I didn't have 10 minutes ago. And how deeply I appreciate that I'm more able these days to create and to fulfill through the feminine. So I feel quite balanced at this time in my life. I feel quite fortunate.
Wonderful. It's a bit sad that we start feeling this way after our 50s. You kind of wish, why didn't we start out like this? But then you're told to enjoy the ride getting here, Thank you, Kat. Dove.
Hi. So we had a lovely conversation. It's been so interesting. for my own personal journey, being a white man that identifies with more traditionally female traits and working as executive coach with women that are trying to bring in more of the masculine, it's really interesting to try to live in that world of balance. The only point I wanted to make is being out here in California, so many of my friends' children are going through this gender fluidity. And I don't know where it's all going to go, but their very nature of this black and white idea of male and female is very different than what we grew up with. And I'm very excited about what it means for how they grow up and how this next generation grows up thinking in terms of these black and white and gray. And I feels like they're more open to the ideas around Shakti leadership. So I'm just encouraged by that.
Yes, this thing that we are equal parts both, and we can be a very unique combination of the two, regardless of our gender. I think that's what this new generation is going to display.
Yeah.
It's lovely to see some of them actually, they're so beautiful in that integration.
Yeah. Yeah. So much more self-possessed than we were at that age.
Yes. And confused we were too.
Yeah.
Thanks, Dad. Anyone else? Any comment, feedback, question? Manju?
I just want to say how much I enjoyed your presentation, Nalima. It is such a beautiful container, and I really appreciate the mythology that you bring in. And also this leadership style assessment, I recognized as I was looking at it that anytime there is a challenge that I have as a leader, I can pull this out and see where I'm out of balance. And I love it as a tool like that so much. Oh, there's so much I could say, but I'll stop there. But thank you, thank you. Patty has sung your praises for a very long time. And I'm so happy to get to meet you in this way.
Thank you, Manju. And I'm so glad all of you have that one worksheet, because literally it can be your power pill. We have a word in the yogic system called Brahma Astra. It's like the weapon of the gods, it's literally that one thing, that one worksheet. So use it again and again and tell me how it goes. I've drawn it from a blog post or an article written by Caroline Turner. It's based on a lot of very good research, but then you kind of put it into an assessment, So, anybody else?
We have a few hands up, Nalima. Before we go to the hands, we have some comments as well coming in from chat. Sharon Joy writes to us, the concept of scarcity comes from a dying paradigm. This is a thoughtful time, recognize the domination, words and language, wondering about picking words that are more aligned with the rest of nature, is what she sent in comments. So please continue to add your comments. Thank you, Sharon Joy. But I do see Eva's hand raised. Eva, would you like to have the floor?
Thank you very much, Heather. Well, first, it's a pleasure to be with you all. And I have a belief that nothing happens by hazard, that we are always connected for some reason. And to be honest, I received the book of Nalima Friday after waiting 6 months, because I have ordered in Amazon, and I'm in Luanda, Angola. And I'm also very fan of all of the teams related to women leadership. And it was quite a surprise, because it was someone that had told me about your book, and I wanted to read it. And I received the book, and then I was on LinkedIn talking about how I have received, and I found out about this event that I have came. And thank you once more for the sharing. It has been a very, 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 very powerful for me also to listen, to understand, and to move forward, and to try to understand where is my style assessment. I will do it later on, because I also trust on these bases that women and men, we are equity. It's equity. We all have these energies. We just have to understand where are we and what can we learn from one and each other, and that makes the sense of talking about these issues, bringing more of these issues online. And I'm also the founder of a project here in Angola that is called Women Leadership Angola. And it's giving voice for women, bringing these issues, gender equity, because we need to be here together talking and moving forward with this. And well, it has been quite a journey, this workshop, and thank you for that.
Thank you, Eva. In fact, you're kind of bringing me to my closing slides, and we have 2 minutes, so I will take those 2 minutes to show those slides. And the conversation can please keep going. Write to me. My email will be shared shortly. So with your permission, I'm going to go into the final set of slides. So in closing, to access Shakti, cultivate presence. It's about exercising our power mindfully. It's win-win power with, not win-lose power over. And it's about masculine and feminine power. It's not masculine or feminine power. Remember, it's like inhaling and exhaling. You're not allowed to choose one over the other. You'll die. It's time to restore gender relations. They are in a state of deep disrepair. So it's about becoming a whole man, a whole woman, a whole person, and a whole leader. Let's rise in love together, instead of falling in love and making each other less in some way. We have a Shakti mission of creating 100,000 Shakti leaders by 2030, a global network of leaders who will collaborate to create peace, prosperity, and beauty through the exchange of multiple forms of capital. That's why I'm here with Future Capital. And if you want to learn how to be a Shakti leader and get certified, we've just launched a beta version of our Udemy course. It's an affordable self-study course. You can create your own book club. You can bring it to your organization. And here is the link for it. It's still in a bit of a incomplete state, but we thought we are ready to go. So bear with us. And we hope you're going to find it easy to do, and write to us if you can't get the link. You can also join us with the Shakti Fellowship program if you are women interested. This is certified with the University of San Diego and WIN. The next one will be announced in spring 2022, and is going to be based on becoming global citizen leaders and planetary leaders for the new paradigm that's needed. This is my email and Raj's email, and this is the website where you can follow us. And thank you. Let's have a world that works for all life. With that, thank you so much. And over to you, Patty.
Thank you so much, Nalima. That was a beautiful presentation, and I so appreciate your presence and your wisdom. So, for everyone, I have a couple of announcements. I just wanted to let you know, please join us next month on May 12th for our next Future Capital conversation, when we'll be focusing on the conscious attention economy. So this is something that I've been extremely focused on over the last few months. Because in a world overflowing with information, then attention becomes valuable. And when something is as valuable as human attention, it becomes the basis for a whole new economy. So given our attention or our consciousness shapes our way of being and our behavior, as we've just learned in this workshop, it's no surprise that companies are finding ways to attract, to keep, and to monetize our online attention. So we'll buy their product or service or join their cause. So in alignment with Future Capital's core mission to heal the connective tissue between consciousness and capital, we are going to explore the attention economy from different perspectives to help everyone start to focus in on this elusive yet powerful influence that we're all experiencing, sort of like the fish swimming in the ocean and not realizing, the water that it's even swimming in, that we are all being impacted. So we're going to ask the question, how can we influence a healthy approach to online engagement that respects our attention and serves the common good. So instead of focusing on the problem, we really want to start focusing on the solution in all the different domains that we can start to, use our attention and make those changes. So please join us next month on May 12th. I think it's going to be an exciting discussion. We're going to have some good speakers to illuminate it, and we're going to open it up for everyone to comment. And then the other thing I want to say is this workshop series, which today we experienced with Nalima, is every other month. We rotate between the conversation series and the workshop series. And it's because our attention, our consciousness is so powerful. It shapes the reality of our moment-to-moment experience. And it's why we devote every other month to these workshops, to explore different aspects of our attention and how they relate to our everyday experiences in life. So Nalima, you did a beautiful job really taking all of these concepts and making them so practical for us. Our next Future Capital workshop will be June 9th, and it will be facilitated by our very own Tim Kelly. And Tim is the founder and the visionary leader of the True Purpose Institute. He works with top leaders in many fields and countries that are called to operate in a new way and create a new world to redesign and evolve society. So many leaders are inspired by conscious capitalism and other calls to create a new way of doing business, but most are unsure of how to do it. So his purpose is to help leaders transform into a new paradigm leader, one who models for others what the future of leadership will look like. Tim has trained over 1,000 consultants, therapists, and coaches in his methods. He is the author of the book, True Purpose. And also Tim is one of only 7 certified conscious capitalism consultants. So we're thrilled that Tim is going to be leading our workshop in June. And that will be June 9th. So look for that as well. So I want to thank all of you for your attention over the last hour and a half. I really appreciate it. And I'd like to end with a moment of silence. It's our tradition with Future Capital to end every session with a moment of silence. So we're going to all take a deep breath, go into a moment of silence, and then you can just stay for as long as it feels right and just drift off. Okay? Thank you so much, Nalima. Thank you all of you.